are types of class are out there. You probably won't see. Class D fire extinguisher is any type of burning metals, stuff like that. Picture of that is a gear on fire. Also, there's a Class K fire extinguisher. That's usually for any cooking media, any animal fats, cooking oils. Those are what you'll find in an industrial kitchen, so restaurant, stuff like that. Those actually have separate fire systems, so when those goes off, that fire extinguisher is a second line of defense. It's a liquid. When it comes out, it creates a foam blanket. It reacts to the animal fats or cooking oils, cuts the oxygen source out. There are a couple different types of fire extinguishers that you guys probably have on site, whether it be a stored pressure ABC extinguisher, stored pressures with a gauge. You guys, I believe you might have CO2 extinguishers out there. CO2 extinguishers are a high pressure cylinder. There is no gauge on it. It does have a metal braided hose that is covered with rubber and a big black horn on the front of it. It only covers B and C fires. The reason it is a metal braided hose and it's covered with rubber, you can get static electricity. So you're going from room temperature to negative temperature. When that compiles up on the floor or on the ground, it looks like snow. Those, when you happen to use a CO2 extinguisher on a B or a C fire, make sure you have a well ventilated room. It does cut the oxygen source out. It sounds silly. I had it happen to a guy that I worked with 15 years ago. He was driving a new company truck and the CO2 went off in the back of the truck and he didn't strap it down. So he called after he crashed the truck and said, I passed out, I don't know what happened. Well, they found out later on when DOT showed up that he didn't strap the CO2s in. And he got to pay the nice fine for that. So, also there's cartridge operated extinguishers they do have out there. Those will cover anywhere from the ABC fires or just B and C fires or a Class D fire. Depends on what kind of chemicals in that shell. Cartridge operated extinguishers themselves have no pressure in them. On the side of it, basically imagine a BB gun cartridge on steroids. That is what on the side of it, CO2. If you ever have to use one of those sit on the wall actually for 12 years with no maintenance. If you ever happen to use one of those, on the front of it, the cartridge will sit on the side. On the front of it, there's a silver button that says push on. Anytime you get ready to use that, if you have any of those on site, what you'll end up doing is you'll get it off the wall. It'll hang on a handle on the side of you. You always want to pull the hose off and you want to put your thumb over the hose. Never look directly on top of the cartridge operated extinguisher because the top of it unscrews so we can look inside, check the chemical. When you get ready to pressurize it, always look away, chop on the top of it, hit that button, it'll pressurize the shell. Reason we don't look over the top of them, because we do take them off. We do look inside and make sure it's the correct chemical inside of there, make sure if it's full or empty. Now it has happened before, it's probably been about 20 years where somebody went to go use this. It actually happened to BP twice, where somebody went to go pressurize it, popped it, was looking directly over it, cap came off, killed them. Second time, anytime you see a fire extinguisher sitting on the floor, you always want to hang it on the wall. Sounds silly, it's just sitting on the floor, you're using it as a door stop, right? But what happens is across the bottom here, you'll get moisture in here. If it's sitting on the floor long enough in water or anything like that, it'll rust out. Same thing happened. Guy grabbed it, pressurized it, shell lifted off the ground, hit him in the face, killed him. And it was BP refinery, it happened twice too. So talk about bad luck between oil spills and fire extinguishers. Also, the other types of extinguishers that you can run into, probably not in a facility like this, is clean agent fire extinguishers. Those are used in like sensitive areas like computer rooms, server rooms, anything like that. They are a gas. It sounds like a liquid itself in the cylinder, but when you go ahead and spray it, it evaporates, so there's no cleanup. They used to use CO2s in that area. Anything else that didn't catch fire, it would end up getting thermal shock from hot to cold, so they switched over to the gas extinguisher. They're either listed as Halon, Halitron, or FE36 now. Halon and Halitron are both being phased out because why? They're good, so they're bad for the environment. We got to get rid of them. Or you'll see FE36. Those also vary in size too. You can go anywhere from a 5-pounder all the way up to a 13-pound extinguisher. But the 5-pound extinguisher itself is only good for B and C fires because it doesn't have enough liquid in the cylinder to cover an A fire. So anytime you get ready to use an extinguisher like that, if you notice it is one of those in a computer room, make sure you're using it specifically on top of a server or a computer or anything like that. Now, I always get asked anytime we do these training classes is, extinguishers, how long are they good for? You know, is there an expiration date on them? Well, there's a couple of things. Anything pre-1984 in a stored pressure shell like this has come out of service. It seems very silly for the reason they did it, but it was. So as you can see across the top here, you see the triangle, square, and circle. That's what they used to list as ABC for these pictures. Right over here, guys. So they used to list these here, and now there's the pictures on the bottom. That is simply why the extinguishers came out of service. So before, people didn't know what, you know, an A-fire, triangle, square, circle, they didn't know what that meant. So in 1984, they came up with the bright idea, we're going to slap stickers on them. Well, that wasn't good enough. So they had to print a label where the extinguisher was actually on the manufacturer's label. So all extinguishers like this had to come out of service. Now in a business or a home, as long as the gauge is in the green, you're ready to rock and roll. I'm a young kid. I was born in 1983. A lot of the extinguishers in my home are from 1984. Gauge is in the green, they're ready to rock and roll. But in business, it's a little bit differently. We have to come in annually, we have to inspect an extinguisher. So annually, when we come in and inspect extinguishers, say if I've never been to PVS before, and you have 10-pound extinguishers through the entire plant. Every year when I come in, our first time on site, I always weigh an extinguisher. Each different type of extinguisher has a proper weight to them. Usually a 10-pound extinguisher can range from anywhere from 15 to 17 pounds. And that's with everything in it, from the chemical to the hose to the shell, everything. I'll weigh it, check it. I always pull the pin on it, make sure the pin isn't bent in there. I always pull the hose off. You know, spiders will crawl up there, dirt and dust areas that'll get in there, they'll harden. And kids, they think it's the coolest thing ever. If you go to a school, they put gum up there and they're like, this is badass. They go to use it, it's gonna shoot out, it's gonna come out 100 miles an hour. No, it sucks, I have to clean it out. But we always check that. Now there's a story I tell every time I come out and do with this. So I had been doing this about 13 years. I went up to Sears at Woodfield Mall in Schaumburg, Illinois. They had just gone through a remodel. Construction company came in and they put all brand new fire extinguishers in the store. There's about 70 of them. Same thing. They were manufacturer seal in there. I came in, I weighed it. Maintenance guy walking with me was getting aggravated. He's like, man, they're all new. What's going on? I'm like, I got to do it. I've never been here before. Weighed it, pulled the pin, pulled the hose off. I usually carry a hanger with me where it comes out just the other end of the hose, just far enough. So I'll stick it through there. Couldn't get it through. Couldn't figure out what was going on. It was clogged. I'm like, all right, no big deal. Well, the next 10 fire extinguishers, it was the same thing. Hose was clogged. I'm like, all right, something's not right. At that point, I was still filling off the back of my truck, one in my truck. We cut the hose open at the rubber to the metal. Manufacturer didn't drill the hole out into the rubber. So all 70 fire extinguishers in the store were no good. Just because they didn't do it. That's why anytime it's the first time on site for me, we go through, I check everything the way it should be. I tell that story for a little bit later in the next couple minutes of getting ready to use a fire extinguisher. Now, I said before, anything pre-1984 came out of service. CO2 extinguishers are a little different. As long as they will pass a test, we will keep servicing as long as there's enough room on the shell to stamp a date. CO2 extinguisher, if you're looking at it, it curves around the top and it has a little bit of neck on it for us to thread the valve into it. Around the whole top there, if we can stamp a date on there, it will stay in service. Now, you can't stamp anything down the side of the shells. Once you lose all the room up here, they come out of service. I had customers, until I came to work for Basic Fire a few years ago, that had CO2 cylinders that systems they brought from Europe when they had manufacturing over there to the States. These CO2 systems were sold, they had swastikas on them. That's how old they were. Came from the World War. I couldn't believe it when the guy's like, hey, did you see that on there? I'm a young kid. I'm like just cleaning it off, looking at stuff. He goes, check this out. And he showed it. And he go look on the back side of the shell. All 40 tanks had swastikas on them because they were from the World War. So stuff like that, Kevin can vouch for it. We've had stuff, those system bottles like that, or CO2 extinguishers that you have on site come in every 5 years for a test, a pressure test. Kevin can tell you that we get CO2 cylinders that are 5 years old, brand new, and they come in for tests and fail. They just don't make it like they used to anymore. So when we get ready, we come in, we check this. We look for dates on these extinguishers. These extinguishers themselves particularly get a 6-year and a 12-year maintenance. So every 6 years we have to bring them in What we do is we can reuse this chemical. We blow the chemical off in a special hopper that holds the chemical. We go ahead, we change the O-ring in here, we clean the valve, and we clean the check stem. We look internally for any type of rust or any, anything that doesn't look right. If it looks good, we fill it back up, put it back together. We always put a collar on top of it. This shows that we opened it. We put a sticker on the side, shows that we did our 6-year maintenance, and pressurize it. Send it back out for service. Now with the 12-year maintenance, we bring it in. It's the same thing as the 6-year, but it's a little bit different. The 12-year maintenance is a pressure test. It resets the manufacturer's date. So what we do is we empty all the chemical out, change it, we look internally, and we fill it full of water. Most fire extinguishers are anywhere from 575 PSI to 600 PSI. I can get it. Oh, damn.
Huh?
I would have answered it.
Oh.
I was just making sure. What we do is we fill them with water, and then we pressure test them up either anywhere from 575 PSI to 600 PSI. If it holds for 30 seconds, we go ahead and we empty it. We dry the shell itself internally, and we put a sticker like this on the side right now. This sticker right here, this shell was done at 575. This sticker stays on here for 12 years. This resets the manufacturer's date. It has to stay on there, because if I walk in and somebody said, oh, we had them all pressure tested last year, and that sticker's not on there, I won't tag the extinguisher. This has to be on there to prove to us that this went through its proper maintenance, whether it be a 6-year or 12-year. Now, when you come back and do that 6-year maintenance on there, you can put the 6-year sticker on, but this one has to stay on there until you come back and do the 12-year on it. Now, any stored pressure extinguishers on a red mild steel shell, those go through a 6-year and 12-year maintenance. Stainless steel extinguishers, whether it be a foam, a water, or the K-Class extinguisher that is in a kitchen, those just get a 5-year hydro test. All the chemical inside those units on a stainless steel extinguisher cannot be reused, so we have to fill it with new chemical. CO2 extinguishers themselves are usually emptied, and then we devalve them and pressurize them, or fill them with water and test them. Those are every 5 years themselves. The hoses on CO2 extinguishers, these do not get a 12-year test, but the hoses on an extinguisher, we do a continuity test. We make sure that if we do go ahead and use those hoses, you don't get a shock from it. Because the static electricity, you would think it can't be that bad. Well, when I was about 3 days into servicing fire extinguishers and got to haze the new guy, right? So like go out to the scrap pile, start shoot. The fastest way to do it is shoot off CO2s at the same time, right? You'll get it done really fast, but keep them real close to you. Well, they had cracked hoses, and what did it do? It jumped from the extinguisher up my boots, and it got me right under here. I jumped about 2 feet in the air, and everyone sat back and laughed because it shocked me, and it hurt. It was fun though. Everybody laughed at me. I was like, all right, I get it, haha. But that's why we always check those hoses out, make sure there's no crack in it where there's metal braiding, and the hose right there will shock you when you go ahead and use it. And then you'll always see a sticker on the hose showing the continuity test was done. Cartridge operated extinguishers themselves, those have no pressure in them. So every 12 years they sit on the wall, we come out and inspect them annually. Now most extinguishers, when we do a 12-year maintenance, we come through, we check the cartridge on them, we pull the top open. If we hadn't been on site, I always pull the top open just to look and make sure the chemical on the top, let's just say it's an ABC, is yellow, because a lot of companies will just refill it with different type of chemical, put it back into service. So if the chemical on the top should be the same color of the chemical on the bottom, because we can take those hoses off, make sure nothing's clogged in them. We want to make sure that color matches top to bottom, because a lot of companies, what they'll do just to refill them quick, throw them up on the wall and get a tag on them, put different chemical right in on it. It does make a difference, because some of the chemical, if you do mix it, once it becomes pressurized, it can cause the shell to rupture. So when we come out and inspect all that, we always pull the hoses off, make sure they're not clogged, check the cartridge, make sure it's at its proper weight, open the top, make sure there's enough chemical in there, pull it off. So when we look at the hose on the bottom, make sure that all the chemical matches up. Anybody have any questions so far for me? I know it's super exciting, right? This is just, it's fire training where we get into it. Fire training is not what it used to be. We used to get the big 6x6, 8x8 pans full of diesel, and you'd feel that fire from 10 feet away. We don't get to do fun fires like that too much anymore. The fire we're gonna fight today is a propane-fed fire with water. It's fairly simple to put out. But I will tell you this, 3x3 pan out there, all right? you would think, all right, that's an easy fire to put out. I'd be willing to bet my entire year's pay if I filled that with diesel and gas with that water, you couldn't put it out by yourself. And a lot of guys have gone, oh no, there's no way I could do it. No, you couldn't. Because that fire is all it's going to do is there's a lip on that pan, about that far from the water. Fire likes to play the game of hide and seek or peekaboo. It just needs a little bit of heat and a little, just needs a little bit of air. And it'll dance around that pan the entire time while you're trying to put it out. On a pan like that, if we were doing diesel and gas, I would tell you we would have 2 people fighting a fire on a pan that size. Because then you could both come in on an angle, get the fire out, and that's how we do it. So here's where the fight or flight with the fire extinguishers comes in. We'll just, we'll make up this building as a maintenance building, all right? This is building A, we're in building A, we're working right now, all of a sudden fire alarm goes off. You see some smoke, you smell something in the air. You decide, hey, I'm gonna fight this fire, all right? So you get a hold of a fire extinguisher. Everybody has that loved one or the coworker they just wanna get a hold of sometimes. Same thing with the fire extinguishers. Grab a hold of the extinguisher, take the pin, pull it, drop it, get ready to go. Now before I was telling you that story about that Sears at Schaumburg, right? Always give the hose a quick squeeze. Make sure there's nothing clogged in there. You don't want to have performance issues running up on a fire. Give it a quick squeeze. Anytime you're getting ready to fight a fire, a lot of guys will grab it, and I'll tell you, they're doing this the whole time, all right? No, it's like playing cops and robbers. Get a hold of the fire extinguisher, get ready to go. Let's just say the fire's in the northeast corner over here. That's where you notice something's going on, and that's your closest exit. As you're heading over to that area to check out and see if you're going to fight that fire, start taking mental notes. What's going on in that area? We'll just say it's a maintenance room over there. They've, as you're heading over there, there's, acetylene tanks, torches, welding equipment, gas cans. When you get in there, don't just start spraying. Everybody's seen the movie Backdraft, right? Right at the end of it where he takes the extinguisher and he just smashes it and throws it in there and it puts it out. If you guys can smash this off and just make the fire go out, I'll grab some popcorn. We'll go sit outside and have some fun. I got about 30 extinguishers in the truck. We can see what we can do. But that's not how it's going to work. You got to just take it, throw it in there. You got to identify the source of the fire. Just spraying at a fire isn't going to put it out. Could be a dripping liquid. Could be an outlet on fire. Could be something that's spilled on a countertop and it's causing it to pool on the floor. Anytime you get ready to fight that fire, always start about 10 to 15 feet back. No matter how many training classes I've taught when we were doing it outside, live fires, gas, diesel, always get that one guy that's so excited, he gets the extinguisher, he runs right up on top of the fire, lets the full pressure of the extinguisher right onto that fire. What happens when you hit that liquid? It's gonna blow everywhere. And then they're standing there looking at me going, why is there 10 little fires on the ground? No, you always wanna start about 10 to 15 feet back. Identify the source of the fire. Let's just say it's a pooling liquid on the floor. You're going to want to start 10 to 15 feet back, work at a side-to-side sweeping motion when you're fighting the fire. So you're going to work your way in. Once a fire's out, back away from a fire. You never want to turn your back on a fire because, like I told you, it just needs a little bit of heat and oxygen, to keep going. So when we be working those big pan fires, let's just say we were 4 or 5 training classes in on the day. That pan is super hot. I'd be standing in front of you guys right now. The pan would be behind me, and they'd be like, hey, there's a fire in the pan behind you. It just takes enough breeze that it would cause that thing to reignite just from the heat off the pan itself. And it has happened to me. When we would do those trainings, we would always give ourselves a 2 or 3 hour lunch break. It wasn't just to sit around and relax. We had to make sure the pan was cooled off enough, or we would have to take shifts and lunches just because those pans would start off with just a breeze. Once you make your way out of the building, meet up with your site contact, Kevin. Kevin's going to tell you, okay, where was the fire in the building? Great. He'll let the fire department know. They will plan accordingly and go, okay. 90% of the time, fire department, before they even roll the hose out, unless they see an engulf fire, they're going to grab an extinguisher off the truck, and they're going to go in and investigate themselves. Now, here's where the flight part comes in. You grab the extinguisher, you get ready, you're heading to that area, you get there and you notice, this is too much. I don't want to fight this. I really just want to get out of the building. No shame in that. You're not a firefighter. You don't get paid for that. So as you're making your way out of the building, there's another fire that started next to your exit. Now, when I first started doing training, the old timer that I learned it from, he had 40 years then. He made me laugh. He goes, you put a wall of chemical between yourself and the fire. And, you know, I'm a young kid. I go, that just sounds like the craziest thing. It's just chemical. It's not going to knock the heat down. So I did my first training class. And what you do is you walk by the fire and you spray it up and down and put a wall of chemical between yourself and the fire. I couldn't feel heat. You will actually put a physical wall between yourself with that chemical, make your way out of the building, meet up with Kevin, he'll let the fire department know what's going on, and they'll go in there from there. Any questions? No? I know it's simple basics, what I just went through. It's nothing crazy, and it's, you know, pretty much common sense, but this is passion for me. I enjoy it. I taught my kids how to fight a fire. I've done it with, you know, a bonfire pit in my backyard. Taking just a little bit of things that you learned from this today can make a difference later on. I had, this was 10 years ago, in my old house, literally a neighbor's kitchen caught on fire. And I grabbed an extinguisher, I had a bunch of them in my garage, I went and put it out. And I always thought, all right, this is easy, I'm doing these all day. The adrenaline that comes over you and then you come back out of a fire like that, I literally was like, oh, that was awesome. I'm sitting there later going, that was the dumbest thing I have ever done. Because my heart was racing. I'm like, what if I would have slipped and fell or something would have happened in the house? It was the simple things. Before I came into fire protection, I didn't really know any of this stuff. And you guys have all been around it a lot. I'm sure have been through it before. But just knowing the basics of what to look for with a fire extinguisher, how to approach it, how to put it out, can make a big difference later on. So when we get ready to fight this fire out here, there's only about 16 of us, something like that. We'll just we'll start with one extinguisher to go, pass it back. Once the fire's out, you guys can head out. Once you put it out, you can head out. But when you get ready to fight that fire, we'll start about 10 feet back, aim towards the top lip of the fire, or the pan. Once it's out, pass the extinguisher back to the next person, and you guys can head back to work or head home or however the day goes for you. Any questions?
No.
No?
Let the fun begin.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.